Welcome to Wild Survival, the podcast that takes you on thrilling journeys through the great outdoors. In this episode, we travel to Glacier National Park in Montana, where Ted Porter battled incredible odds to overcome a treacherous fall into a 40-foot crevasse in the middle of one of the largest glaciers in the park. Ted Porter is from Los Angeles, California. He grew up visiting Glacier National Park with his family, creating cherished memories that fueled his passion for the great outdoors. He is also an avid solo hiker that values the solitude and challenge it offers. It was early September in 2013 when Ted had met up with his parents for a week of hiking around Glacier National Park. With just a few days left of his trip, Ted decided to spend some time solo hiking out to Jackson Glacier. Glacier National Park in Montana encompasses 1 million acres of land and a network of over 700 miles of trails. On the north side of Mount Jackson, which stands over 10,000 feet in elevation, Jackson Glacier ranks as the park's seventh largest out of 25 that remain in the park. Because of climate change, glaciers are melting at a rapid rate, and scientists predict that all or most of the park's glaciers could be substantially reduced by the year 2030. As Ted headed out for his hike, it had been raining and the ground was still wet and slick. His adventure began slightly later than planned, but he was making good time. When he emerged at the top of the steep trail as the dense forest opened up, he could see it, the Jackson Glacier in all its glory. Ted marveled at the scene, taking in the vast expanse of the glacier's beauty. Determined to explore further, Ted strapped his crampons onto his boots and began his trek across the ice towards the rock ridge to the top of Mount Jackson. Crossing the glacier proved challenging due to recent rainfall, making the ground slippery and hazardous. Nonetheless, Ted pressed on, recording videos on his phone to capture the triumphant moments as he ascended, relishing in the mountain's majestic wonders. He looked around, but as far as he could see, he had the glacier all to himself. Ted looked for a good path to the top of the mountain along the rock rim. He removed his crampons to continue up the rocky slope, but it was difficult to get traction. It was getting later in the day, and the path he had chosen was more treacherous than anticipated. After a close call where he had slipped but caught himself, Ted decided it was too dangerous to continue. It was time to turn back, but the hike down would still be precarious. Ted surveyed the landscape carefully, searching for signs of crevasses. If he slipped, he would be okay sliding down as long as he didn't fall into the depths of the cracked ice. He hadn't put his crampons back on his boots because he was planning to have to slide some of the way down. But when his footing gave way, Ted began hurtling down the icy slope, uncontrollably sliding. He had no way to stop himself as he gained speed down the glacier. He did his best to dig in his heels, trying to use his ski poles to slow him down, but it was no use. When Ted was looking for crevasses, the angle at which he stood was hiding a very large crevasse that he was now speeding directly towards. In an instant, he was slammed against a huge wall of ice and dropped 40 feet down into the depths of the glacier. When Ted opened his eyes, he hoped that this was just a nightmare. The events played through his head, but everything seemed so unreal. He was shocked to be alive, but his entire body was in tremendous pain. The situation was bleak as he looked up at the ice walls surrounding him. He was trapped inside the depths of a glacier with no one around and no way out. Ted had never felt so alone. The grim reality that this could be the end of his life was overwhelming. He reached for his phone to record a video with the intention of saying goodbye to his family. As he captures the ice walls of the incredible depths of the crevasse, Ted tells his parents that if he doesn't make it out, he loves them. At the time, he thought that these would be his final words and hoped that search and rescue would deliver the message for the sake of closure. Although Ted's immediate thought was the hopelessness of his situation, he regained his inner strength and pushed himself to find a way to survive this ordeal. His goal now was to look for a way out so that he could reunite with his loved ones. The ice walls surrounding him were daunting, but one section appeared to offer a sliver of hope. It wasn't as steep as the other parts of the wall, making it look possible to climb. With a newfound determination, Ted made a plan to escape the deadly crevasse. As each movement inflicted unbearable pain, Ted carefully fastened his crampons back onto his boots. Against all odds, he managed to stand and make his way to the ice wall. He hadn't planned on ice climbing that day, but had at least packed one ice axe to use. He clung to the frozen wall with his left hand, using it to ascend, fighting against gravity and his own limitations. Each hack of the ice axe threatened to throw him off balance as he pressed his face hard against the ice wall. He knew that if he gave up or made a mistake, he was unlikely to be given another chance. Ted's climb was agonizingly slow, but his will to survive pushed him to keep going. After what felt like an eternity, he emerged from the crevasse. He lay there, curled up on the ice, trying to catch his breath. He then searched for a path to try and make his way down the mountain, but right beside him was another very large crevasse threatening to swallow him too. Determined to avoid a second fall, Ted resorted to laying on his side, sliding and pulling himself along until he could find a safer place to stand. As he regained his footing, Ted desperately looked around for help, but the glacier remained desolate. He recalled seeing campers near Gunsight Lake, but the 3-mile hike down the mountain came with a new set of challenges. Ted knew he was in grizzly bear country, and it was feeding season as the bears were preparing for winter. He had seen fresh bear scat on the trail earlier that day and knew they would be in the area. From here, all Ted had was his ice axe to use as a crutch in one hand and bear spray in the other. He bravely pressed on through the forest, determined to keep going. It took a few hours, but eventually Ted made it to a meadow near Gunsight Lake. He was relieved to see some campers and went over to ask them for help. He told them about his impossible journey of falling into a crevasse, climbing back out, and hiking to the lake to find help. The campers were astounded, even more so when Ted told him his plan was to continue the 6-mile hike to the road to find a hospital. Ted's determination was admirable, but for him to continue moving in his condition did not seem like the best course of action. They brought him over to their camp to let him rest with food and water as they worked out a safe plan. Even though Ted knew he was not yet in the clear, he was grateful to no longer have to bear the weight of his situation alone. Back at the campsite, Ted was fortunate that there were 2 campers trained in emergency first aid and search and rescue there to help him. They knew how to calmly handle the intense situation and come up with an effective plan. The campers gathered whatever supplies they had to make Ted comfortable while they evaluated their options. Nightfall was approaching, and the hike down would be too dangerous due to the threat of grizzly bears. They had a spot satellite receiver, which could signal search and rescue teams to come to their aid that night. However, considering the darkness and potential danger, it might not have been possible for a helicopter to even reach them. The campers laid out the options to Ted and asked him what he wanted to do. Ted felt that he trusted their decision-making abilities. He thought that he could make it through the night, so they stayed at the camp and waited for the sun to rise. Ted tried to sleep but was unable to due to the pain radiating throughout his body. It was an agonizingly long night as each hour felt like an eternity. When the sun was finally about to rise, 3 campers set off on the 6-mile hike to the road to get help, while one woman stayed behind to watch after Ted. She held his hand and encouraged him to stay strong, reassuring him that help was on the way. It's common for tourists to take helicopter tours in Glacier National Park. Ted waited and watched for signs of the right helicopter, the one that would save him. It took a few hours, but as they heard a helicopter circling above them, gradually making its way down, they knew that this was the one meant for Ted. He was loaded up and flown to the nearest hospital, going directly over Mount Jackson and the glacier that nearly swallowed him whole. At the hospital, his x-ray showed 2 damaged vertebrae, one fractured and one completely shattered. A bone fragment was pushing into his spinal cord, threatening to paralyze him. Ted's parents and girlfriend waited anxiously as he was rushed into surgery, hoping for the best and preparing for the worst. With great success, doctors were able to prevent Ted from being paralyzed. It took 3 months of rehabilitation for him to be able to walk again, and it would take more than a year of regular physical therapy for him to reduce his residual pain. But Ted's adventure to Jackson Glacier pushed him to his absolute limits, and he persevered against all odds. He is grateful for his second chance at life, being reunited with his family, and the gift of being able to walk again. Ted's journey stands as a testament to his resilience and unwavering spirit. In the face of a frigid and agonizing death, he triumphed in a seemingly hopeless situation, climbing out of an icy crevasse and painfully making his way down a mountain on a treacherous journey towards help. Had it not been for the knowledgeable and compassionate campers in the right place at the right time, Ted may not have made it out alive or with his ability to walk. His determination to see his family again gave him the strength to survive the most incredible event of his life. And so, we conclude Ted Porter's extraordinary tale of survival in Jackson Glacier. Next time on Wild Survival, we embark on a journey to Peru, where a remarkable story unfolds. Listen in as we uncover the unwavering strength and resolve of a young woman who survives a plane crash and navigates her way to freedom out of the Amazonian jungle.